Good evening and welcome to GBC's review of the news making the headlines in 2014. It's our last instalment and it's my turn, so tonight I'll be recapping October, November and December. The European Commission extended the scope of an ongoing investigation into Gibraltar's corporate tax regime to examine whether its tax rulings practice is tantamount to state aid.
All that it means is that the Commission is considering extending its investigation, and we obviously have to engage directly with the Directorate which is responsible for competition. It's that relevant part of the Commission that's involved, to demonstrate to them why the reasoning that they have put in their press release about why they want to extend the investigation is really entirely flawed.
The government and the opposition clashed over reforms to legal aid, which created new rates for lawyers working on criminal cases. At the opening of the legal year, the chairman of the Bar Council, Melo Triai, said the new rules do not provide proper remuneration and are the subject of continuing discussion.
We have various issues we need to deal with. It's not just about the rates. The legal aid system needs a general review, and also the legal assistance. So there's much more to this than just the criminal side.
The court also paid tribute to the outgoing Attorney General, Ricky Roda QC.
The number of judges has doubled since I was here. The sort of cases that we have are longer, more complex cases. The legislation that we now have is much more complex. We had slipped behind England and Wales in criminal law, and thankfully we've now caught up.
There was good news for the Rock's many cruise fans. Royal Caribbean International announced it's to bring the world's largest cruise ship to Gibraltar. The Allure of the Seas is set to arrive in October 2016.
So there you see the past, the present and the future encapsulated in one parade.
The Royal Gibraltar Regiment celebrated its 75th anniversary by exercising its freedom of the city, with a parade at Casemates and a march up Main Street. The man who suffered a gunshot wound at Europa Point in January 2013 pleaded guilty to fraud totalling nearly £500,000, as well as to perverting the course of justice. Mark Gallia was remanded in custody ahead of sentencing, which is still pending. A contract was awarded for a new sewage treatment plant to be situated at Europa Point.
Well, we have an obligation under European law and also an obligation to the Mediterranean environment to treat our sewage, which at the moment, as we all know, it's a very old system and it's not treated. So therefore this will ensure that the outflow from the sewage plant is one which is acceptable at European standards.
Fortress HQ and a warehouse block at the naval base are to be handed over to the Gibraltar government as part of a new lands transfer deal which will take place early 2015.
We're not planning jump cuts here at the base. The Strategic Defence and Security Review takes place next year, so it's not underway at the moment. I would simply highlight again the strategic importance of Gibraltar in the context of current and future security challenges, and I would emphasise that our commitment here is for the long term. It is expressed not just in fine words, but in significant investment which will flow from the agreements that are being signalled to you this morning, and an enduring partnership as well.
It was also revealed that the MOD will be inviting tender applications for the resurfacing of the runway for the first time in 20 years. Whereas Number 6 Convent Place was adamant the works would be funded exclusively by the Ministry of Defence, the MOD itself claimed the costs would be shared. A Gibraltar Chronicle opinion poll showed the GSLP Liberal Alliance clearly ahead on 60%. 1,000 forms had been distributed around different areas of Gibraltar, with 25% returned.
The Chief Minister told the Fourth Committee that his intention was to update them on the events affecting Gibraltar of the past year.
Addressing the Fourth Committee of the United Nations in New York, the Chief Minister urged Spain to stop the cat-and-mouse games at sea before someone got hurt.
In the past 2 months alone, there have been 245 illegal incursions by Spanish state vessels into BGTW. All of these incursions are challenged at sea and or by the filing of diplomatic notes verbal. These 245 incursions, like all others, are therefore of no de facto or de jure value to assist the Spanish government in building a claim to the sovereignty of the waters around Gibraltar, because the waters around Gibraltar remain just as British before, during and after any incursion.
The man who pleaded guilty to stealing £500,000 from client accounts at Lombard Odier was sentenced at the Supreme Court. Andrew Smith was deemed to have committed a serious breach of trust and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Measures were taken to deal with the possibility of the Ebola crisis reaching Gibraltar. An isolation wing was prepared and equipped.
Ebola is a kind of disease that doesn't simply come through in an asymptomatic way. Usually the person who is infected is running a temperature, and such a person is likely to report to a health service.
But aren't 16-year-olds interested in other things, really?
The government announced plans to reduce the voting age for general elections from 18 to 16. The Chief Minister said this came after the referendum in Scotland, which included 16-year-olds.
The Labour Party and I think also the Conservative Party are therefore talking about extending the franchise generally to people as from the age of 16, and therefore we in Gibraltar do not need to be dragged kicking and screaming to follow this example.
The GSD said it wasn't against the idea in principle, but thought it should be the subject of debate and consultation.
That we at the GSD believe that all sides should welcome an extensive and open debate in order to really study the pros and cons, so we can take as a community an informed, mature and collective decision.
A group of 30 Barbary macaques were exported to a safari and adventure park in Scotland. Spain gained a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council.
Mr. Malagho said today that now, forming part of the Security Council, Spain has to step up to the responsibility of what being on the Security Council means. Now, I sincerely hope that that means continuing to take a less belligerent attitude to Gibraltar.
Celebrating strong historic links, the Gibraltar Day in London also saw a focus on the modern and vibrant nature of the Rock's relationship with the city.
And it is a tribute to the entrepreneurial spirit of Gibraltar that despite these challenges, Gibraltar remains a successful economy. And I was struck during my visit by the energy and vitality of Gibraltar as a destination for trade. Whether we're looking at financial services or at bunkering, or at tourism and hospitality, Gibraltar is open for business, and that too is what we are here to celebrate today.
At an e-gaming breakfast organised as one of the Gibraltar Day events, it was revealed that the Gaming and Betting Association will continue to challenge the United Kingdom's plans for a point of consumption tax after a High Court judge ruled against them earlier in the year.
Unlike with the licensing, the UK can't show that it's a consumer protection measure. It's purely revenue raising. So you know, there's a slightly different issue there to be adjudged, and obviously the issue of Gibraltar and its standing is always remains there as an unanswered question.
Fabian Pigardo said the Gibraltar government would be an interested party. A new online Al-Qaeda magazine, Resurgence, encouraged militants to blow up or hijack ships passing through the Strait of Gibraltar. Around 200 people, including Superman himself, Man of Steel actor Henry Cavill, took part in a rock run for charity as part of the celebrations for the Royal Marines' 350th anniversary.
I didn't know what to expect, really. It's the first time I've run up anything like this, and it is a rather big rock. I just remember the walking bits where it got so steep you had to walk, thinking I can't even catch my breath walking. And it was, you know, a bit of a nightmare, but I really enjoyed it. It was nice to run up with Nick and with my trainer Michael, and you know, we got there in the end, and these guys helped me through.
Gibraltar will always have a very special place in the hearts of all Royal Marines. It's the one battle honour that we wear. So lovely to come back here. Really good fun to have done the rock with Henry.
Former Gibraltar Euro MP Sir Graham Watson was granted a 3-year contract to head the Gibraltar government's office in Brussels. Gibraltar was granted the second highest rating by the OECD, a result described as magnificent by the Chief Minister.
The biggest finance centre in the world, the most respected finance centre in the world, is London, and London got a largely compliant finding. Frankfurt in Germany is probably the second most important financial services hub in Europe, and it got a largely compliant finding.
New rules were published by the government for the regulation of fishing in British Gibraltar territorial waters. They came into effect on the 1st of January. The 55-page document detailed measures including the issuing of permits to protect the marine environment. It also catered for the regulation of tuna fishing.
I think to present it now as
The opposition, the government and GBC all issued statements after the broadcaster withdrew invitations to representatives of the government and opposition for a viewpoint debate on the voting age. The move followed a difference of interpretation of the regulatory authority's code.
I'm just disgusted that nursery school politics from the government party has resulted in this debate not being able to be longer and not to be able to be more in depth.
All in a month which saw an application to build a boutique hotel at Eastern Beach submitted to the Development and Planning Commission. The Minister for Education said the University of Gibraltar would be open for business in September 2015. Records of the evacuation of Gibraltarians during the Second World War were placed online, and a GBC documentary series, several refurbishments and the Clean Up the World project were recognised in the Heritage Trust Awards. November brought some good news for those who like to fly. EasyJet announced plans for flights between Bristol and Gibraltar starting this summer. The airline will operate flights on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays.
We expect around 20,000 passengers during summer, but because of course we calculate passengers on a year-round basis, Gibraltar can expect to have 40,000 more visitors from the southwest region of the UK.
Later in the month, Royal Air Maroc announced a flight connection between Gibraltar and Tangier, which will start this March. The new 30-minute air link will see 2 flights a week. A local firefighter accused of stabbing a colleague was found not guilty. Eligio Porter had already been acquitted of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. The GHA unveiled a new state-of-the-art prostate cancer clinic. The equipment donated to the clinic will provide precise diagnostic and treatment tools.
We operate and diagnose diseases.
Singer-songwriter Albert Hammond received standing ovations at 2 sell-out concerts at the Queen's Cinema, where the 70-year-old performed all his biggest hits. Two Lithuanian nationals pleaded guilty to offences relating to counterfeit currency. They were sentenced to a month in prison. Gibraltar's Court of Appeal ruled the Supreme Court judge, Sir Geoffrey Grigson, acted correctly when he dismissed the jury in the multi-million-pound Marache fraud trial and heard the case alone. The Marache brothers vowed to take their challenge to London's Privy Council. The Court of Appeal also found their sentences were neither excessive nor wrong in principle. An application for a new Holiday Inn Express hotel and apartment block was submitted to the Development and Planning Commission. The build would be in Devil's Tower Road at the former workers' hostel site. The second Gibraltar International Literary Festival saw venues across town hosting talks, food tastings and musical performances. History, religion, politics and art were among the topics explored by local and international authors.
One grew up knowing Gibraltar was absolutely crucial in World War II. Think how many films, war films or documentaries have been set with a Gibraltarian background.
The programme also saw many talks for younger children and secondary students. Gibraltar conceded just 4 goals away to world champions Germany in a European qualifier in Nuremberg, an encouraging result after 2 7-0 defeats earlier in the year to Poland and Ireland. Details of the European Commission's letter to Spain following last July's visit were published in the local press, revealing it's asked Spain to take a series of measures to reduce queues at the border without delay.
We have now seen that in fact the Commission was saying those things to Spain, that it was right therefore to involve the Commission. We were right to rely on the freedom of movement guaranteed under the treaty for people to come across that frontier, not the freedom to establish themselves in other places, which is the issue of freedom of movement affecting British politics today, and also that the Commission has not let Gibraltar down in the sense that it hasn't let Spain off the hook.
Works at the building site for the Charles Bresson House for the Elderly were temporarily stopped after a loud crash was reported. Following a meeting with concerned families at Governor's Meadow School, works resumed but only after school hours. The liquidators of Marache & Co. began legal proceedings against a local accountancy firm for negligence, breach of duty and dishonest assistance. They are looking to recoup over £28 million owed to creditors of the collapsed law firm. 2 men were hospitalised with serious injuries after a traffic accident on Devil's Tower Road. One of the car's occupants was transferred to a hospital in Malaga. The other was arrested by the RGP on suspicion of dangerous driving, along with another man who was in a second vehicle at the time. The RGP later expressed concerns over speeding on Gibraltar's roads.
We are concerned because we continuously operate Operation Roadwatch throughout the course of the year. We are reporting people for process during the course of this operation. We're trying to educate people, we're trying to instill awareness, but at times we feel that we're hitting a brick wall.
An application to build a car and coach park on Reclamation Road was approved by the Development and Planning Commission. The 10-storey tall car park will provide over 1,000 spaces. All in a month when 34-year-old Spanish national Antonio Velasco Rodriguez was reported missing by the Royal Gibraltar Police. A 21-year-old local man was fined £600 for grabbing a woman's breast while drunk. And an intense thunderstorm resulted in a major rockfall on the east side and several road closures. On to December, which brought good news for prospective homeowners. With all flats at Monscalpe Mews and Beachview Terraces allocated, the government announced 2 further housing projects, the first opposite Water Gardens and the second on the east side Reclamation. In total, 1,500 new flats are planned. Good news also from the IDO World Dance Championships in Germany, where local dancer Caitlin Rodriguez won gold in the children's solo female section. Both the Foreign Office and the Gibraltar government rejected Spanish claims that Gibraltar was to be excluded from European single skies measures. The UK said it was absolutely clear under the EU treaty that it would be completely unacceptable to exclude it. The ROC's preparedness in the event of an air disaster was tested with an exercise organised jointly by the Gibraltar government and the Ministry of Defence. The scenario simulated an aircraft carrying 66 passengers crashing after takeoff. Emergency services took 30 minutes to reach the crash site.
There will be a continuous process of reporting in as to how progress is going, such that we can then update the plan and ready for the next exercise. And I think that we'll be doing another exercise to actually just validate the changes that we made and hopefully see a quicker response time.
The new red buses came under criticism from the opposition and the Women's Association, who said concerns had been expressed by a number of users. The government said the buses are configured to meet EU guidelines on accessibility.
Well, as you can see from the bus, the second seat now has 2 steps, one which is very low and of course also long, so that those with reduced mobility can easily access the seat. Once you get to the middle of the bus and you go to the majority of the seats, you will also see that there are now 3 steps, very low steps and also very long steps. We've also changed the holding bars so that it's easier to, one, navigate the step and also hold on to the bar as you're travelling on to access the seats. And the first 4 seats have now been changed so that there are now 8 seats for those with reduced mobility.
In early December, more than half the electorate had still not made up its mind how to vote. That was one of the key findings of an opinion poll commissioned by GBC at the 3/4 point of the GSLP Liberals' term of office. Of those voters who had decided, more than twice as many said they'd choose the alliance. The GBC poll also suggested that the new power station will be the most important issue at the next election. The revelation coincided with the government signing a £77 million contract with a French company for the construction and first-year maintenance of the new liquid natural gas power station. The Chief Minister said it would be operational by late 2016, early 2017.
Technicians, etc., will be able to.
Will you accept the offer that I've made to sit down?
Don't call each other names.
Absolutely.
Right.
And also, will you accept?
With an election expected in 2015, Fabian Picardo and the leader of the opposition, Danny Feetham, undertook to move away from name-calling and focus instead on issues. On GBC's Viewpoint, the two men shook hands and shared a rare embrace.
Mommy will be very happy with a new photograph.
Nature Port Reception Facilities was convicted of 5 counts of breaching health and safety legislation in the lead-up to the 2011 North Mole tank fire, which resulted in the death of a worker. Nature was fined £120,000. Further legal proceedings could follow. An unexpected and major cabinet reshuffle saw ministers called in one by one and informed of their new responsibilities by the Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo, and the Deputy Chief Minister, Dr. Joseph Garcia. Among the more significant changes, Neil Costa took over employment, a portfolio previously held by the former Chief Minister, Joe Bossano.
And I think some people may perceive that the allocation of responsibilities for you is almost sidelining you a little bit. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say to that if you think that you must be GSD.
Really? That's your response?
That's my response, because I don't think anybody in the GSLP can possibly think that anybody in the GSLP would want to sideline me. I am the father of my party.
The Royal Gibraltar Police investigated a major act of vandalism at the North Front Cemetery, where walls were sprayed with graffiti and a number of buildings were ransacked. Fabian Picardo asked the police authority to provide a factual report to the governor following a series of allegations of bullying at an RGP selection weekend published in the Panorama newspaper. In a statement, the police commissioner said he believes the allegations will be found to be unsubstantiated. Gib Telecom's board completed a 50% share buyback from Telecom Slovenia worth €47.7 million. The share purchase agreement was signed in November, with the government having full ownership of the telecommunications company, they say, in order to influence the way forward on Gib Telecom's future ownership.
Determine for ourselves who our partners are.
A Spanish national was extradited to Spain for allegedly indecently assaulting a minor. The 59-year-old La Linea resident was arrested on the Rock following a European arrest warrant. 70s disco legends Boney M entertained the crowds at a winter party in town during the last Saturday before Christmas, as thousands hit the shops looking for presents. On Boxing Day, 6 Spanish boats were challenged off Catalan Bay for raking in British Gibraltar territorial waters. They were reported for process by the Royal Gibraltar Police. The Guardia Civil and Royal Navy were also present. Local artist Christian Hook won the Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year. Christian's top prize was a £10,000 commission for the Scottish National Portrait Gallery.
This is me. This is fantastic.
And finally, before December and 2014 were up, the GBC Open Day raised over £113,000, its largest total yet.
12 months on, Her Majesty has asked me to convey...
The Governor used his Christmas Day broadcast to transmit a message from the Queen, who conveyed her continuing appreciation for the loyalty and steadfastness of the people of Gibraltar. And a dramatic fire at the entrance to the Sunborn Yacht Hotel at Ocean Village was quickly brought under control by the fire and rescue service. There were no casualties. Some of the most memorable local stories from October, November and December 2014. And that concludes our review of the year just gone. You can catch the whole review of the last 12 months next Thursday at 9 p.m. For now, thanks a lot for watching, and on behalf of the whole news team, all the best for 2015.